sweet union.
My mother's family lived on a large farm near the North Union Shaker Village, and there they purchased baskets and brooms and grain measures and skeins of yarn to knit the family's stockings, mufflers, and shawls. My grandfather had his grain converted into meal and flour at the Shaker's grist mill, and he had his timber cut into lumber at the sawmill. But it was those Shaker stories passed to me from my mother through her friendship with Eldris Abigail that awakened in me a lifelong interest in the lives of these gentle folk.
Carolyn Piercy, during a conversation with her neighbors, realized how little was retained of the Shakers' heritage in mid-20th century Shaker Heights, Ohio. From her ongoing efforts to learn and pass along the local history, the seeds of the Shaker Historical Society were sown. Among others joining in these efforts was John Schott, a local minister and graduate student of history who, like Piercy, utilized the resources of the Western Reserve Historical Society. They both recognized the need to preserve and to share the legacy of a sect which practiced equality of rights and charity toward all.
Long before women's rights became a social and a political issue, the Shakers had granted equal rights to women and practiced true charity in their willingness to welcome all who showed up to be fed and housed.
Piercy so believed in the importance of preservation work that she stored local artifacts in her basement as she gathered them. Her efforts were soon to find a broadening interest linked to a founding event. Commemorating the 125th anniversary of the North Union Shaker Colony served as the catalyst for the establishment of the Shaker Historical Society. This corporation was formed October 21, 1947, exclusively for the charitable purposes of discovering, collecting, preserving, and extending knowledge concerning whatever related to the life, history, traditions, and heritage of the Shakers and of Shaker Heights. It was 1808 when Daniel and Margaret Warren traveled from Ackworth, New Hampshire, to build their log home here in the wilderness known as the Connecticut Western Reserve.
Mrs. Warren and our 3-week-old babe rode, while the boy of 2 years I carried. Neighbor Prentice with his ox team hauled our few household things. We went into the deep woods and set to work to equip the cabin.
The cost of pioneering a new life was high. In 1811, the Warrens' daughter, Lovisa, who was the babe in arms, died at age 2 and became the first white settler buried in what is now known as the Warrensville West Cemetery.
Those early days were so lonely. Daniel was often away at his work, and my infants and I were then alone to face the bears and wolves that continued to claim this land. How I welcomed friends from Newburgh, Ohio, whenever we had occasion for a gathering, even if those occasions were as filled with sadness as they were with joy.
This cemetery holds the remains of many of the settlers who sought a better life here than in their previous homes, many from the Isle of Man. The struggle for freedom exercised through the American War of Independence and Development of the Republic extended throughout the western frontier. Jacob Russell, honored here for his Revolutionary War efforts, sought an expanded life from Windsor Locks, Connecticut for himself, his wife Esther, and their 11 children. In 1811, he purchased 475 acres along Doan Brook in Warrensville Township of the Connecticut Western Reserve. As dominance for control of the waters of Lake Erie raged in the War of 1812 between British, American, and Native inhabitants, the Russell family influence in northern Ohio began.
The Russell family formed an odd procession as they journeyed westward. We embarked at Sackett Harbor, New York on August 1, 1813, and made the journey by flatboat. This was very difficult on account of the many portages and getting around Niagara Falls. There being no harbor in Cleveland in those days, we finally effected a landing by rowboat. Slowed by storms and the perils of war, the cabin was not completed until late fall. Food was scarce and illness affected everyone.
With 3 generations of Russells occupying a cluster of log cabins, a settlement in the frontier was claimed. The patriarch, Jacob Russell, died in 1821, and his son, Ralph, assumed the leadership of the small community. In 1822, Ralph brought the spark of Shaker religious fervor to his family after his visit to Union Village, Ohio, in the Miami Valley. The revivalism that had spread across Kentucky and southern Ohio captured Russell's imagination.
Instead of joining the Union Village settlement, the elders convinced me to return home here to Warrensville Township to start a new Shaker village. I ask you to donate your land and belongings to this new religion.
Russell and his family formed the nucleus of the North Union Shaker colony. In 1826, the Mother Church, or head of influence at Mount Lebanon, New York, asserted its authority over the Western Enclave by sending elders to formalize the Shaker Church at North Union.
The time has come when natural families must relinquish all natural ties. We mourn, every family apart, husbands and wives apart, children torn from their mothers. The celibate order is established in North Union.
The families could no longer continue dwelling in separate log cabins in their chosen living arrangements, but would have to build a common dwelling house and begin true communal living. Based upon the teachings of Anne Lee Stanley, Mother Ann, the United Society of Believers held God to be a dual personality, a balance of masculine and feminine attributes. Seeking a heavenly perfection here on earth, the Shakers practiced celibacy and confession of sins, as well as equality of labor and reward in their communal habitat. The decision to sign the covenant of membership was left to each individual. In 1828, 80 signed the rolls at North Union, but ironically, Ralph Russell, Laura, and their 3 children declined to sign and chose to move to what is now Solon. The North Union colony was organized as 3 families: the Center family, located at the corner of Lee Road and Shaker Boulevard, the East family on Fontenay, and the Mill family below the dam at Lower Shaker Lake. This dam on Doane Brook provided water power for the sawmill and the stone grist mill. Elder James Prescott also helped record how the Shaker produce, baskets, canned goods and dairy products, beef and Bakewell sheep were highly prized in the northern Ohio region. Their packaged seeds and manufactured goods supplied a growing market, while their religious practices flourished in the meeting house on Lee Road.
The interior, in its utter simplicity, breathes quiet and calm. The place is flooded with light.
Come life, Shaker life, come life eternal, shake, shake out of me all that is carnal. Come life,
For the Shakers, religious inspiration was considered a sign from the Holy Ghost. Manifestations could include shaking fits, visions and prophecies, gift drawings, songs, and dances.
Shaker hymns are a gift that we freely share. The songs by themselves speak of the many aspects of our life. I'll show Michael twice how he behaved.
According to Piercy's recollection, Shaker spiritualism died a natural death about 1852 after 2 decades of growth. They lost their zeal and fervor, and their symbolic fountains and rivers of living waters dried up. Without their collective enthusiasm, the materialistic temptations of the world were more difficult to resist, especially for the younger members.
A hackman met us at the railway depot in Cleveland. We had a comfortable conveyance and an interesting ride out Euclid Avenue, which Barnard Taylor in his travels around the world says is not exceeded except in 2 cities for its wealth and grandeur and beauty. After riding 8 miles, we reached the boundaries of North Union. We found the society very small in number, not 30 in all, and among these 4 sisters who are in their 80s. After supper, we held a consultation meeting, for a conclusion had to be reached if the community was to continue on in this place, for the membership has so dwindled in number, and many among them are so aged that they are no longer able to care for the place properly. Our advice is to have all surplus sold, for otherwise moths will in time destroy them. Our ministry are leaving at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Farewell, North Union.